Hey guys, so in the past 6 months, I've spoken to about 100 conscious leaders who want to start a podcast and who haven't started. So I'll give you in this video the top 5 reasons that came through those conversations so you understand what might be the reasons that makes that you haven't started your podcast yet, even though you're motivated and you want to do it, and maybe you've been procrastinating and postponing for months or years. Understanding those reasons and also how to overcome them. So hopefully you get started with the podcast that you have within you. So let's get into it. The first reason identified from those conversations is the lack of prioritization. So often people want to have a podcast, like it's cool and they understand they will get benefits from it, but it often comes from a lack of clarity on the goals. Let me explain. Let's say you're a coach and your priority at the moment is to get more clients and to make more money with your coaching business. Well, then it's good to be really clear with that and to start a podcast that is aligned with this intention. So starting a podcast that will get you more clients, that will help you to make more money with your coaching business. What I see often is people coming and saying, I don't really care about monetization. I don't do it for the money. I just do it to help people, which is beautiful. It's important. But then what happens is life kicks in and they need to make money. They need to fund this or that. And so they never start. Or they stop the ones they started because it's not top of the list. Top of the list is in that case, maybe making money, right? So just be clear on your goals. If you are super financially abundant and you don't really care about making more money thanks to the podcast, that's great, amazing. But if that's not the case, just own it, be honest with yourself, and understand what is going to help you prioritize the podcast. And if that podcast is going to help you generate leads and make more money, you're going to prioritize it more, right? So let's own that and build a podcast taking that into account. Of course, you still want to be motivated. You still want to be giving to people. You still want to be super passionate, but you also want to have that clarity on what's in it for you. The second thing that comes a lot is overwhelm on how to position the podcast. So there's so many small questions that come up when you want to start a podcast. Okay, what topics am I going to talk about? Am I going to do audio or video? Which platform am I going to prioritize? Am I going to have guests or only solo episode? Where am I going to promote the short clips? Like, should I do clips for Instagram or for TikTok? Whatever. All of these micro decisions, they create paralysis. So here, the idea is, of course, it's smart to take some time to reflect a bit on the positioning, but ultimately, get started with something. Like, you don't want this to paralyze you for weeks or for months. And keep in mind, you can always change the positioning as you go, and you will collect more and more information on what you like to do, what is working well, what is delivering on your intentions as you go and do it. So what I say is often is that a podcast, it's not like a book. You don't have to be fully consistent. So a book, you can't change the topic after 3 chapters, right? It wouldn't make sense. But with a podcast, you can. You can change the name, you can change the topics, and it's going to evolve with you. And I often say that every episode is a new launch. So do your best to position well because you will save time, but don't let it freeze you. Then the number 3 is the tech overwhelm. And here we'll have a very similar approach, which is get started without letting it freeze you. And so there's often a lot of questions around what equipment, what software to use for editing. And often people, when they're beginners, actually it's for good reasons because they don't use the right tools and they end up spending a lot of time editing and they end up quitting. So that's a very good reason. So here I recommend starting with what you already have. For example, I shoot this on my iPhone 15. A lot of recent MacBook Air, MacBook Pros can have a really good camera and mic already. You can start with this and then upgrade as you go. Again, if you start with something incredible, amazing, but don't let this stop you. And then if you do interviews with guests, I really recommend Riverside. That's going to save you a lot of time. And also there's a few things to know to prepare it in a way that you know that there won't be a lot of editing. It's going to make things super easy, like 1 hour of post-production maximum, and then it's ready, including promotion, including clips. So that's for the tech overwhelm, which is the third big one. And the fourth one is a lack of processes. So once you've prioritized it, you understand what are your goals, then you're like, okay, that's how I'm going to position it. And then you're like, okay, that's the tech stack that I use, the softwares. Then it's good to know a process. What is the process, especially if you have guests? There can be a lot from contacting your guests, finding them, inviting them. Then I use a pre-interview form to prepare the interview. And then I brief them. And then we do the interview. And then there's the post-production. And then there's the promotion. There's a lot of things here. And if you don't have good procedures, it's just gonna be messy. And even if you do solo, it's good to have good systems to keep track of what you want to talk about and what are the bullet points you want to share and how you're gonna publish and when and how you're gonna promote. So it's really good to have very clear process, even what you'd call SOPs, standard operating procedures, where you have your files and you just like kind of go through a checklist, whether you or a VA or an agency, depending on who's doing the work. And reason number 5 is the imposter syndrome. So that's when you think, well, who's going to listen to me? And am I interesting? Are people going to make fun of me? Are they going to criticize me? What are my friends going to do? All of these things that come. Am I going to lose my train of thoughts in a video? Are people going to make fun of my French accent? Maybe. So that's something also that holds people back. And this one is more of a mindset thing. So it's about tuning into our purpose, why we do what we do, and going for it, and learning that it's part of the personal development of the journey of a podcast host or of a YouTuber, that you want to make peace with people potentially criticizing us, but also usually our worst critic is ourselves. Usually our first critic is ourselves, and our imagination, what we think people will say. Actually, a lot of people can be very encouraging and nice, and there might be trolls, there might be negative comments, but usually you'll have mainly positive comments. So that's good to know. And I often say to my clients, imposter syndrome is actually a good sign, because it's a sign that you're doing something that expands you, that makes you grow, that's outside your comfort zone. So take it as a good sign in that way. So here we go, guys. These are the main reasons. What I hear the most is people who don't have a podcast that has clear priorities, that are aligned with their priorities in life. It's very important. Or people that don't have a clear way to position it, and they kind of feel overwhelmed, or the tech, or no processes, and they feel like it's going to take so much time, which it will if you don't have the right processes and the right ways to record and all this. You might end up spending a lot of time editing and all this if you don't know what you're doing. And imposter syndrome. So I obviously don't want you to feel that. That's one of my sole missions here on this planet in this lifetime, to help other light leaders share their voice, share their medicine, share their gifts with the world. And that's why when I work with people, I work on their goals to understand that this podcast is going to be supporting their life goals. There's going to be an alignment. I also work with them on the positioning, so it feels right, and also they use the right strategies, the right platforms, the right topics. Also, I work with them on getting the right tech, whether it's the equipment, the softwares, and I also work as an agency. So for our more premium offers, really you just show up and speak, and you don't have to really take care of all the rest, which is what most people want to do. Most of us, we don't like the editing, the post production, the promotion, all these parts. And then I come with very strong processes that I use for my own podcasts and for my clients. So you don't feel overwhelmed by that. And also, I make sure you stay in your greatness, in your full divine power of you being a light leader. So we'll acknowledge the imposter syndrome when it comes, but we won't let it stop you. So if that sounds good, and you feel I could help you with bringing your podcast into creation, into this realm, check in the description. There's a link to book a free session with me, and I'd be super happy to just help you with a strategy session, and then we can have a discussion if it makes sense to work together. So I hope that was helpful. You can share in the comment, what did you learn from this video? Do you have any follow-up questions? And yeah, I just encourage you to take action, some form of action, whether it's booking the call with me or being like, you know what, I'll just record something and that'll be my episode 1, because the world needs more light leaders to share the gifts. The world needs you, your unique medicine. And so it's time. Often the time is now to start. So book a call if you want, or get started. If you take an action, let us know in the comments also, and much love.